What's up, everyone? I got Ben from PowerPlay here with me. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. We were talking about Prosper. We're at Prosper right now. Just walk me through how Prosper's been for you, for PowerPlay.
It's been a great show thus far. I mean, most of our time has been spent meeting with partners, meeting with customers, prospective customers, and walking the show a little bit here and there. But obviously, there's a lot of fun to be had in Vegas, and we have a lot of really great partners. So we're just out and about having fun and building relationships, and
awesome.
A lot of really interesting services and software providers. So the team's definitely getting a lot out of it.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So this conversation it's about PowerPlay, and it's also about breaking down the window, the wall that is in front of getting into retail for e-commerce brand, for brands in general. I think this is a topic that it has kind of touched on ambiguously in the space.
Right.
I think it's always kind of a semi-ideal space that people want to get to with e-commerce brands, but that don't really know how. So that's the main topic that we're touching on in this video, is kind of how to break into retail, or even what that process looks like. And you're a great person to touch on this. So before we get into kind of the weeds of strategy, I kind of want to break down who PowerPlay is and how you got into this space. So if you could give a little history of PowerPlay and kind of just validate like why you can speak into this retail process.
Yeah, for sure. So, PowerPlay Retail was founded 14 years ago, and it started as just a traditional manufacturer's rep. So we help brands get in and navigate, sell through at retail, really primarily around big box and brick and mortar retail. We're located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so we've got Target and Best Buy in our backyard, and that's really where the team got their start.
Yeah.
We brought a lot of brands in the consumer electronics space to market, and CE is really where we focus our time and energy, especially with Best Buy. And we're able to get GoPro and Beats by Dre their first retail placements. And over the past 14 years, we've just worked with a lot of brands and helping them again navigate, get into retail. And really over the last 5 years, retail's been changing pretty quickly, as I'm sure we can understand. And PowerPlay had to adapt to keep up with that and really support our brand partners in this new age fashion. So about 4 years ago, we added a distribution business. So for most of our retailers, we will buy inventory, manage distribution, and distribute into Best Buy, Target, Walmart. We have vendor numbers with almost 40 retailers. So we do a lot of distribution. And, in the consumer electronics space, one of the key things is map pricing. And, obviously e-commerce is now here. And, 5-10 years ago, everyone knew about Amazon, or at least they thought they maybe knew a little bit. They didn't really know how to play. And a lot of times brands would just sell Amazon their inventory, and sometimes Amazon plays nice, and other times Amazon sells products wherever they want. And, being a heavy retail business, on Monday morning, when a buyer calls and sees, hey, Amazon's price is $10 lower than GoPro in their store, they're going to call us and they're going to say, hey, I need markdown support. And so, for us as an organization with big brands in retail, we really wanted to think of how can we help our brands go to market in a more controlled fashion. And so we built this Amazon business so that we could actually create channel consistency, help our brands have that consistency, have that consistent pricing strategy, have consistent looking content across online and offline channels.
Sure.
So it really just started as a way to help service our retail industry and help support the buyers, support our brands from getting a ton of markdowns for price matching in the industry. And then it kind of just morphed into something that, has become really big for us. And
you mentioned GoPro, and there was a second one that you mentioned as well.
Beats by Dre.
Beats by Dre. Okay. Yeah. So how did that deal come about? I mean, those are two enormous deals. I mean, I think they're big, right? How did those deals happen? And what was the need? Like, they came in obviously with a need,
right,
to get into retail. So how did that deal go through?
Yeah, no, for sure. So part of it was before my time, but Jeff Petchel and Tracy Thie were the two co-founders of PowerPlay Retail. They've both been working in the consumer electronics space for almost 40 years. So they, have been at a lot of big retailers. Tracy worked for Pioneer. He worked for Samsung. Jeff has been just in the rep space for a really long time and knows Best Buy in and out. And, going to CESs, going to different shows, they stumbled across GoPro. They stumbled across Beats by Dre, which originally was owned by Monster, which is another partner of ours.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times when brands need to go to market in retail, they use reps. Retailers all have their own unique nuances. So Target operates very differently than Best Buy and very different than Walmart.
Yeah.
Their planograms are different. Their seasonality, time frames, when they reset, how long it takes to reset. Best Buy is a very, nimble retailer in that they can do planograms every single month, versus Target, you might have 2 fixtures a year. So, to really think about how to get into retail and helping get brands like GoPro and Beats by Dre into retail, it's really just about, understanding, again, the nuance, knowing how to navigate the systems, knowing how to navigate the processes, communicate with the buyers, the analysts, get purchase orders cut, inventory management. And so for them, it was really just calling on doors and helping them understand how to approach the retailer. And obviously, they both have done very well since.
Right. So this kind of leads into, in my mind, a conversation around the specific strategy for getting into retail, right?
Yeah.
Like painting this picture, helping sellers or whoever's watching understand better how to take their business perhaps into retail, or at least start the process.
Right.
Because I would imagine it is quite a process to get into retail, especially for e-commerce.
For sure.
Digitally native brands.
Right.
So how do you even start that process? Or where does the process start for brands to even start thinking about getting their product, their brand into retail? What do they even need to have in place before they consider going into retail?
Certainly a lot of things.
Okay.
I think, some of the bigger things right now is having good trajectory. I mean, it's interesting in today's world with digital being as prevalent as it is, Amazon's a benchmark. So a lot of times retailers like Best Buy, Target, Walmart, will be in meetings with the buyers and they'll go look at Amazon to see, hey, how many reviews do you have? Do you have good content? Most of these retailers now are starting digital first. So 10 years ago, it was get in the stores or you didn't have an option.
Sure.
And a lot of times getting into stores, you got to have a higher level of sophistication. You got to, for a retailer like Target, you might have to hit audits. So there's definitely a lot of red tape around being able to successfully execute and operate at big retail. And nowadays though, with digital, a lot of times the buyers will say, hey, we want you to start on digital first. They want to prove it out. They want to see if you can build content, if you can create titles, bullets, keywords, rich content, A+ rich content, good images, and really make sure that, hey, that brand has legs to stand on before even considering it.
Yeah.
And so now for us, especially, at Power Play, where we have both sides of it, we're using Amazon as a great way for us to launch brands, for us to showcase new products, new launches, spend aggressively on advertising, thanks to the help of you guys, and then make it a little bit easier for our buyers to go into conversations and say, hey, here's some traction we have. Let's bring this in store.
So you mentioned some things like content, the justifications that retailers look for. I'm assuming it's probably different for different retailers, right? Can you give some specific examples? Like obviously not every example from every retailer, but perhaps some of the main retailers, like let's say Best Buy or Target. What do some of these people look for? You mentioned content as an example.
Right.
Expand on that. What are they looking for from these products as a validation?
Well, I think, think best retailer like Best Buy, what they're trying to do is they're trying to have the newest technology, the hottest items, and really standing behind higher end tech that, they give you 5-10 different options to be able to think through and make the right decision for whichever product you want to buy. Target, it's more of a key items business, so they might not have the same selection and reach. But for a brand, for a retailer like Best Buy, it's really just thinking about how do you communicate that technology in a simple way. So take this last year we had a lot of there's obviously the pandemic, and there was a lot of growth in the sanitization of products, and so one of the brands we work with is a company called PhoneSo. So they have a product that it's a UV sanitization device for your cell phones. And last year, they'd been online for maybe the last 5 years and did a pretty good job on their direct-to-consumer side. They'd really grown their brand presence. They're one of the best in the space from a tech perspective. But, this past year was obviously a huge catalyst for us. And,
Right.
It's a confusing concept of like, how does it work? And obviously when you're on shelf, you don't have that real estate. So when you're on shelf, it's really about, hey, how does your packaging sell your story? So for a brand that doesn't have retail-ready packaging, that's obviously an important thing to think about. But, taking online content, building out your packaging is kind of what a buyer could look for.
Yeah.
So really making sure that, hey, can you explain your technology simply? Does the customer understand it? Do they see the right response? If so, that's a great starting place to go down the conversation and get into financials and all the other hurdles that for a lot of Amazon brands where, hey, you may be able to capture a little bit more of the margin. Getting into retail, you either have to have distribution and distributors. Obviously, retailers have pretty aggressive margin requirements as well. So, from a product readiness perspective to get into retail, the financials are obviously super important. Understanding the distribution, the supply chain, being able to produce inventory. If you miss a set, you're done.
Yeah.
So for a lot of these brands, it's, hey, making sure that they don't mess up their one opportunity to really sell themselves and get it in store and deliver. But there's just a lot of nuance to it as well. Kind of once you get past that initial gate, but for a brand to even have that second round of conversations, you got to have good content. You have to have a good online presence in today's world.
I think that sometimes people can write off retail. I would say over the past couple of years, like, I don't want to say couple, but over the past years, e-commerce has been the focus.
Right.
Digitally native has been the focus as a launch pad primarily. Right. But the idea of retail, from my perspective and just kind of buzzing the space, is kind of coming back in to a lot of people's perspectives as a key way to expand their business. Is where in your mind, where is retail in the hierarchy of importance for brand expansion?
Yeah. I mean, I think retail, it's of the highest importance. I mean, e-commerce landscape's great. Amazon gives you a lot of control, a lot of ability, but it still, pales in comparison to the size of brick and mortar retailers. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's something like, still only a 20% e-commerce penetration. So 80% of purchases in the United States are still done at stores. And, this last year obviously got a lot of us to get more comfortable with using online platforms and new shipping methods and flexible fulfillment options that, a lot of these retailers that have that brick and mortar operation are able to provide their customers. So Target, for example, has flexible fulfillment options where you can buy online, pick up in store, you can ship from store. They're the retailers that have locations, that have warehouses. Every single store can become a warehouse for these retailers. They have a great advantage to be able to continue to build on their footprint and really leverage their stores in a way that better supports the customer in this new digital world, but doesn't necessarily hurt traditional retail.
How accessible is retail to the small guy? I want to say the small guy as in, medium to small businesses, because GoPro is a huge name,
right?
But how accessible is this to the average e-commerce seller?
Yeah, not very.
Okay. Well, why is it? Is it because of the limits or the proof that you have to get into retail, or is it just this misunderstanding? Is it education? What's in the way of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what you said there. I mean, I think if you're a brand and you want to try and call a retailer, you might think, hey, how do I find out who that buyer is? You might be able to find it on LinkedIn. You might know, you might not know. You might shoot them an email. They're not going to respond. Buyers are super busy, and in this, in today's world, they're able to get information so quickly. And unless you have a relationship with the buyer, unless you have, certainly if you blow your product up and you become the #1 bestseller and you get a lot of great PR, those buyers might come to you. But for 99% of those brands that are out there, it's really, figuring out how do you find people that have the connections with those buyers, because again, so much of this business is done in line reviews and set timings. And, for us at PowerPlay Retail, we're having conversations with the buyers every single day of the week. And so when we go to a line review, we can showcase them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different brands and have that audience have that, understanding as well that, hey, we're trying to help them and we built that relationship. And so for us, adding new brands into retail, if we think it has a shot, it's simple. Not saying you're going to get into retail, you're going to get placed, but we'll at least have the conversation. We'll get an audience with the buyer. And I think that's probably where, again, because time is getting so compressed, there's so many more products out there. There's so many of these Amazon private label businesses. It's impossible to get the buyer's attention. And
how aware are big retailers how aware are they of private label? How in tune are they with the e-commerce world? Or do they see it as the e-commerce world? Do they see it as just new products that are accessible to them? How hungry are they for these e-commerce, these new products that are coming in? What is the perspective from the retailer?
That's a fair question. Not necessarily talking to them on that, too frequently, but if I were to, guess at it, I'd say most buyers probably don't know as much about Amazon private label businesses and the whole new trend and everything. I mean, people understand that Amazon has products, everything under the sun. You can find 12 different, options of goldfish. You can figure out anything that you want to buy on Amazon. But I think this concept of private label brands building these businesses that are then going to go carry into retail, I don't think there's that much not sophistication, but just awareness of how some of these things are booming. And I think there's also elements of, brands on Amazon that are getting shut down for doing unnatural things.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of nuance that for us that are dealing with Amazon day in, day out, we just get it. We understand what a buy box means. We understand, how to look at your sales range.
Sure.
We have those conversations with buyers, and, for us having all this Amazon data, we're able to bring a different lens to the conversation with those buyers to say, hey, within this category of headphones, here's the top 20 brands. Here's which brand has which market share. Here's where we're winning. Here's where we're losing. Here's how to think about who to attack from a retailer perspective, so that we can help educate them and really come to them with ideas, insights, thoughts on how Amazon's being approached or things that are working really well. And then, hey, how do we help you guys do better than them, or, do different things, whatever it might be with those different conversations.
Let's talk about the future a little bit.
Yeah.
Like where you think things are headed.
Yeah.
With retail combined with e-commerce, right? So from your perspective, from what you're seeing at PowerPlay, how is retail going to come into play over the next 2 years, let's say?
Yeah, I think we're already starting, again, to see how retail is adapting with their supply chain. I think, Amazon's done an awesome job with their supply chain. The number of distribution centers that they have and their network is unbelievable. But, some of these other retailers, Target has 1,800 stores. Walmart has 3,500 stores in the U.S. They're starting to really get their act together in a way that's going to allow them to compete in a more meaningful way in this digital world. They obviously have their stores. They have foot traffic. They're here to stay, and they're continuously growing. And, for us, it's, hey, how do we continue to find the right products that the buyer wants? How do we help them expand their category? How do we identify new trends, new innovation? And that's certainly something that Amazon can be a really great place to see, because, again, it's an open marketplace. So you could have a million different people all with their own different idea of what's going to work, what isn't. And so it's a great place to see trends. It's a great place to see, hey, what categories are getting traction? And then how do we identify a brand that might have market share 5, 6, and 7 that's not in said retailer, that their category is growing extremely well on Amazon, and take that to the retailer. And, for them, it's, being able to combine that digital and retail world. They can be a very, competitive threat in the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Amazon commands the e-commerce landscape today. But I think, what Target's doing and what Walmart's doing with their said marketplaces and, various, HomeDepot.coms and Lowe's.coms, they're going to catch up.
Who do you think is going to be number 2?
That's a good question. I think Target's been doing a very good job with their platform.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get into their marketplace. I would say Walmart is more similar to the management of Amazon. So it's a lot of similar button pushing. It's a fair question. We'll leave it open.
Target or Walmart? We'll see.
Walmart.
We'll see what happens.
Let them duke it out.
Yeah, we'll let them duke it out. I'm curious, just to kind of land the plane of the conversation here. How can people get in touch with PowerPlay if they're interested in what you're doing? If they want to gain access to what PowerPlay does, how can they find you, get in touch with you, watch what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first off, you can add me on LinkedIn, Ben Freeman. And then you can also, come to our website. So powerplayretail.com. We have a section where you can submit questions, and we get emails on that. And probably every single week, I'm looking at 10 different requests that came in through our website of someone that has a cool product that they want us to take a look at. And it's a numbers game. It's taking a lot of calls, having a lot of conversations, seeing what works, and 9 times out of 10 you might get told no, but the 10th time you get told yes. So. For us, it's, hey, just try and find us, come to our website, shoot us a note, we'll chat, see if we can help you guys out. And
it's a great opportunity for growth,
right?
Really, to expand the business, to expand, even like you said, even if it's a no at this moment in time, for sellers that are interested in getting into retail, at least checking into it, at least starting the conversation or starting the thought of what it might take to get into retail is a great place to start, I think.
Right. One, I think too, where we've positioned ourselves in, our business, we operate as a traditional distributor. So we buy inventory, we manage logistics, the supply chain. We'll buy products overseas in China, and bring in freight and warehouse and do drop ship capabilities. For some brands, we're actually running their direct to consumer sites.
Wow.
We just launched a program with Duracell flashlights across the entire e-commerce landscape. So we're helping them in their direct to consumer channel, HomeDepot.com, Lowe's.com, Walmart.com. And so for us, there's so many different ways that we can help brands. We have all sides of retail touched, and we have experience managing and operating those businesses. And, the nuts and the bolts are, being successful in retail is all about your operations. You can't get product to a retailer. You can't figure out how to, go to a line review and prep the right way, or share a presentation with some new products and roadmap for future innovation. You got to, figure out how to get that, done quickly. And we'd love to help anyone that needs help with that. So
amazing. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking time. Prosperous Crazy. I know you're busy, so I appreciate you being here. And I'll put your information in the show notes of this video, of this episode, so people can contact you. But I appreciate you being here. And thank you for breaking down the veil of retail entry. It's been a blast.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Awesome.